Hi, the gang. My name is Dr. Dre Brightwell, Full Circle Coaching Consulting, and joining me is this guy.
Dr. Fraser Smith, one of the coaches at Full Circle.
So, first and foremost, what we're going to cover today is we're going to cover internal communication. We've all been on Facebook or social media, and there's this person pitching, you need to be advertising this way and do this, but everything's focused on the outside of the office. Today, 100%, we want to focus on what's going inside your office, because what's going inside your office is a treasure trove of marketing and new patient opportunities, and it doesn't have to be hard. So we're going to give you, five. Let's give you five like kind of sticky points, ideas. The most common. By the way, if you like this video, hit the subscribe button. Leave us a comment. Let us know what we're doing well. We are here to help you become a better chiropractor, become a better father, become a better human, become authentic to yourself. So you can be more, then you can do more, and then have more.
You can have more.
Life, right? So be, do, have. 3 types of energy. We're focusing here on becoming a better communicator, becoming a better chiropractor, and becoming someone who masters communication. So 5 things we're going to cover, and I'll just give you the 5 topics. So we're going to cover table talk, a little bit of role play back and forth, how to ask for an internal referral, which can include things like raffles, and just like straight up asking for a referral. Difficult conversations with patients. Oftentimes, like, a patient is afraid to talk to you about something, so we want to cover some best tips for how to have difficult conversations. First call ideas. Right? First call is like something that you should do. I don't love the word should, but you should do every time.
It's a wise choice.
A great
choice to do.
So first call ideas, and also like that first adjustment, some role play with that first patient encounter. What we're not going to cover, Fraser, because this is a huge can of worms, is recalls. So there's a huge internal marketing opportunity for recalls and what you do and how you touch base with patients. Everything from an email system to phone calls, what your staff does when you make phone calls, and it's a huge topic. So we're not going to cover that today. We're going to cover
that'll be a different video. So watch for the different video. And just for context, guys, I for one have built a very busy, successful practice that has currently a 5-week waiting list just for an adjustment on internal referrals only. All right. So how do you build a practice like that? Well, people don't leave. And part of that is, how do you talk to them? It's all about education. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
I remember when I first met you, Fraser, and you were telling me that. And I'm like, well, how'd you do it? And you said exactly that. Like, I never let people leave. Like, and as I got to know Fraser, I'm like, hey, he's a pretty freaking cool guy. I can see why people would want to hang around. This was like, God, what, Fraser? Like, I don't know,
but I think, interesting. We'll get into the 5 topics, but part of it's mindset. Like, I just always adopt people if they're a new patient in my practice, I see them in my practice forever. Like, they're part of my family now, right? So I'm the first step is I'm going to choose whether I'm going to accept this person into my family forever. Is it the person that I'm going to want to take care of, and so on. But that's how I talk. I start with language about lifetime care. And again, not everybody's going to buy into that. That's okay. But the people that do, they're going to appreciate you, and they're going to stay. Right. And you don't have to force them. That's the beauty. It's no forcing. There's no strong arm tactics. There's nothing. You just tell them the truth.
I think we've all heard of an Apple apologist. I'm one. And I was an early adopter of like the iPhone. And like that led into, well, I might as well have a MacBook. I might as well have an iPad. And then it all syncs together. And all of a sudden, like, when I get a green text message, I'm like, oh, that person's not part of my culture. and the reason why, it's like I've been a part of Apple, and then they've been a part of my life. Like, that's all I know. And people are like, well, you should go to Android. I'm like, should I? No, that'd be like changing your chiropractor. Like, there's some things you just don't do. You don't change to an Android. And
it's a great analogy, Jay.
The last time I had this conversation about iPhone and Android was with this other business that I'm kind of dabbling in, with opening up a swimming pool. And I just get these green messages from him. And all of a sudden one day I got a blue message. And I'm like, oh, he did it. He's like, well, I couldn't convert you guys. You weren't going to convert me. Like, it was never going to happen. And now all of a sudden I can respond, and I can set like emoticons and reply to, and do all these like fun things that I love to do. And it's made a relationship so much better. So you just have to,
It's so funny, but I mean, there's part of, I think, how do you talk to people? Well, part of it's in analogies, right, and stories, because people remember those things, right? That was a great story, Jay, because I instantly related to it, because I too am a Mac. I'm an Apple guy, and I
I
have
know.
been
I
forever.
I get blue
Because
messages.
exactly, you get the blue messages. So that, but the stories are so relatable, and I think that one of the most important things when we talk about, what are we starting off with, table talk, or no? We're
Well,
talking about
it's that's the perfect segue
perfect.
into table talk, right? Because that's what it is. You're telling stories. Your table talk, like what should it not be? It shouldn't be the weather. It shouldn't be sports. It shouldn't be politics. It shouldn't be but like the default is, how you doing? And
Yep.
that can open up a whole can of worms, right? So, do you want to keep going on
Yeah,
stories and table
absolutely. So
talks?
I think the why are people coming to see you? It's okay to tell them a little bit about your family and things like that, but the real purpose is to be on purpose with why they're coming to see you. And your job is to teach them a little bit about their health and their well-being every day. So I always recommend for newer docs to be scripting out top maybe 25 visits. And what you want to do is you want to master a story. You want to master an analogy so that you can explain and a concept or an idea about nervous system, about health, about chiropractic, and you want to try and make these stories as real as possible, and use hopefully stories that you've either heard if you don't have any of these experiences of your own with patients, but take the stories and give them an example. So you can give them an examples of situations where people have improved in your practice, and you've seen this, and things that you know are predictable, because you don't want to set yourself up for failure either. You want to make sure that this is something that we see regularly, and they can expect it too. Okay,
I,
so
I love that, and I always start at number three. Like the third visit is when like you need to have something to say, and the reason why is that the first one is like the on the table. They've already committed to care, or they've already not committed to care. They've committed to something. They've committed some form of action in your office, and let's just do the first visit now. Let's do the first visit role play. Is that all right with you?
okay,
Because then I think we'll go
like
into like 2 and then 3 on table talk.
yeah,
And what I would do, and I'm not in active practice anymore. I retired from active practice from in Colorado and moved out to Orlando, and I do this full time. But the spiel that I would give was always the same. I'd have a hop on the table face down, and they'd have there were multiple times. I'm sure you get this, Fraser, in a report. Like, what's the adjustment like? What's it going to be?
totally.
Now, the way Fraser adjusts, the way I adjust are two different things. So what I'd tell them is like, look, if you've got any specific ways you'd like to be adjusted, like what has historically worked well for you, and in the same vein, what hasn't worked well, like now is a great time to let me know, because what I don't want to do is I don't want to like break a pattern that has worked really well for you before. Because sometimes you get people who move from Arkansas or some other part of the world, and they're coming to see you, and they're just looking to pick up where they left off. So if they've had great care, let's choose to continue on that. Like what's worked well, but also like what hasn't worked well. Like where have the challenges been? And oftentimes it'll be like, yeah, I wasn't ready for that first adjustment. I don't know. I mean, I would say that 9 times out of 10, just like, I don't know what you're going to do.
I can't tell you, this is my 25th year of practice, and I can't tell you how many times that I've seen a new doc, or a new patient rather, that's come in, and they've been to a chiropractor before, but they haven't been in like 10 years or 20 years, because somebody they saw scared the crap out of them with their first adjustment because they didn't explain it. So you got to explain what you're going to do, and whether it's a manual or drop, or if it's going to be instrument assisted, whatever. Explain how the adjustment works. And if you're not doing that, you're doing a disservice to people, and you really have to set them up for what's going to happen. Walk them through it. It makes that first adjustment so much easier. They know what to expect, and you're not gonna frighten them,
I,
because
I,
that
and I agree. We become desensitized. We become desensitized to the sounds of the drop pieces, the activator clicking at C1 in the neck, the pops, cracks, clicks that comes with a regular like anterior T4 adjustment. Like we can become desensitized to that, but for them, like it's all brand new. And so you almost have to go back into like the Wayback Machine. What was your first adjustment like, and how nervous were you? And I walked right into that, or I would, and say, what's worked, what hasn't. Be honest with me. And then now you have a starting place. Generally, people, I would say 50% of the time, Fraser, they'd say, "Hey, look, you're the doc. You do what you do."
Sure.
Because you've already earned some trust in the report and they've already committed in some way, shape, or form to you. So I think having like you do you, and then usually I would say something like, "Cool, well, can I walk you through a little bit more of what's going to happen, just so you're not caught off guard?"
Yeah, that's important because in my practice, I use various different types of techniques, and that's going to be matched up to whatever I find on their exam and X-rays, etc. Right? So we're going to match to what I think they need. So I'm going to explain that in advance of their first visit, so they know what to expect.
And this was always the start. And this was a chiropractor I worked with a long time ago after I got back from Africa. And I'd start with this, like they'd usually try to like be face down the table, like looking at me, I'm like, no, like you've looked at me long enough, like you just relax. I'm going to walk you through the first adjustment. You'll know when it's coming. It will be very clear when the first part of the adjustment is coming. I put my hand gently in the back and say, pops, cracks, clicks with an adjustment can happen. It's not required. But it's oftentimes a part of the adjustment. There's no bones breaking, nothing like that going on. It's just a little bit gas releasing from the joint. And it's again, not required, but sometimes it's a nice confirmation for me that what we set out to do has happened. Have you ever been back to the gym for the first time in a long time? Like I'd ask them straight up, like, have you ever been back to the gym for the first time in a long time? And sometimes I'd get oh yeah. So do you remember that time that you were really aggressive and you thought you were going to do like 120 push-ups that first day back? You ever have one of those days? And almost always the answer is yes. And I say, well, how'd you feel the next day? And inevitably, everybody says the right answer, which is sore. I was sore. So I absolutely. So what I'm going to try to do today is not give you the 120 push-up adjustment. We're going to try to scale this back, right? First time back to the gym in a long time, let's give you 20 or 25 push-ups. The soreness is a sign that like your body is healing. That is a healing response. And it's okay when that happens. If you've got soreness the next day, it's called delayed onset muscle soreness. But frankly, like if you can't walk the next day, do you remember this? That I always tell this little story. You ever seen UHF with Weird Al Yankovic? No one's like saying that anymore. But all right, it was a movie from a long time ago, and there was a scene where Billy won a prize. I don't remember what his name was. And Weird Al says, "You won a prize. You get to drink from the fire hose." It's every now and then someone goes, "Oh yeah, I remember that scene." And so what happens in the scene is Billy, they put him on this like little horse. Weird Al turns on the fire hose and Billy's blasted off, right? Billy's okay, but drinking from the fire hose is never a fun experience. So what I'm going to try to do is give you a garden hose experience today, not the Weird Al fire hose experience. And so that way in the morning, if you wake up and you're sore, you know that the healing's done its part. But if you wake up in the morning, you don't feel anyway, it's a good sign that we can start to push things forward a little more. If you're really sore, it's a sign for me to dial things back. Because as we talked about with coaching, the perfect adjustment and the perfect amount of coaching is the perfect balance between challenge and support. And this is exactly, and I actually would say that to them. Like, look, in my coaching world, like I'm not going to lean on a client and push them all the time. I'm also not going to tell them everything's okay, right? The perfect place is right in between. And that's where growth occurs for the human body, for the mind, the soul. And what we're going to do today is balance a little bit of challenge, a little bit of support. And based on how you respond, we can take that dial and we can turn it and we can tweak it. And that would then, Fraser, would always lead into day two.
Yeah. So I would, and just to add to that, one of the most important things is to match your example to who's on your table. So if it's a woman in her, 60s, then you're going to talk about gardening. And, the first time you get into the garden for the spring, how do you feel after the next day when you get up? You're sore, you're stiff, right? Same idea. You want to make sure you're matching the story, the analogy to who's on your table, right? And so part of that is figuring out their values in their first, their history. What do they value?
I like what you did there, Fraser, because you can still use the fire hose analogy, because if you're gardening and you've just planted petunias, you're not going to turn a fire hose on them. You're also just not going to drop with a little tea dropper on it, right? The right balance is somewhere between the fire hose and the tea. I see what you did there.
I think a lot of people lose people by not connecting. If you have one analogy for everybody, then you're not necessarily becoming a master communicator. A master communicator is going to figure out how to connect more with that human in front of them by matching a story or analogy or an example that they'll understand. Okay, and that's if I saw a guy today who loves hot rod cars. Any car analogy is going to work. If I do a hot rod car analogy with my 50-year-old woman, a lot of the time, they're going to be like, it doesn't make any sense to them. Okay. I promise you, if I did a hot rod analogy with my wife, she'd be like, who is this guy? Right. Um, so you got to make sure you know who you're talking to, and that'll have a much bigger impact, right? A lasting impact. So that, again, part of the story is develop. We want you to be authentic. So we want you to develop something that is real to you, that is a story that you can share, that's authentic and that's meaningful, and it's not necessarily scripted, but it's a fallback so that you can go to it every time, so that you don't miss things, right? Because it's when you forget to say things to people, you're going to miss critical elements of the education process.
So I had three things I wanted to communicate on a first adjustment. First of all, like I want them to be comfortable and let them know what's going to happen. I want to let them know that it's likely, probable that they'll be sore in the morning because I generally am a manual adjuster, and that the response could be across the board, despite all the X-rays and all the things we've done. Like your response may not match our dialogue right now, and that's okay. And I can't tell you how many times, and we'll talk about the first call next, that someone would come back and I'd say, well, first adjustment, how'd it go? It was just like you said. And I'm like, what'd I say? But then, that's an invitation then to say, all right, well, just tell me about your first adjustment experience. And no matter what, unless like there was something like where they were like crippled, which I don't think I've really ever had that happen. Every now and then there's something that like wasn't quite right for whatever reason. But because they were prepped in some way, shape, or form for the story on balance and connecting with them about getting it right and tweaking and having the ability to tweak things back or move things forward, that would allow me some freedom and some flexibility on day two to say, all right.
Yeah, I think it's a huge mistake if you don't prepare them for what they could experience. So for me, after I've already explained how the adjustment's going to be, after they're done their adjustment, I always say, all right, just for clarity, 10% of people are going to be a bit sore after that first adjustment, like gardening after, first day of gardening or whatever my analogy was. Okay. So what I want you to do is use an ice pack on this part, or any part that's sore. Okay. So stay ahead of it, use a bit of ice, and that's going to help. And I said the other thing that often happens, because I'm going to talk a lot of nervous system with them. We just stimulate a lot of those nerves that have been understimulated for a long time with that first adjustment. So don't be surprised if you're very tired. And if you have to have a nap, go for it. So I'll tell them ice, have a nap. If they're a little sore, not to worry. Very normal. Okay.
That's funny.
That's what I tell.
You and I haven't role played this, but that's like the second part of my spiel is exactly that. And it's funny you say 10% because that's the number I use. And I'd say, how you respond is a little bit different for everybody. And I would say one in 10 people, like if you're sore, toss some ice on it, facilitate the healing process. It's almost like it's no surprise, Fraser. Like we share similar values.
So let's go to our second kind of step in the internal talk or internal table talk kind of process.
I want to just have one last thing on that
Okay.
On that day one. Because I don't like to ask a lot of open-ended questions, but at this particular point in time, I always ask an open-ended question like, "Are you ready to go? Is there anything else that I haven't covered? Do you feel totally comfortable?" Yeah, I'm choosing to earn their trust. So that like piece of open-ended, like, is there anything like you're okay? Because I'm going to start to get to work. There's going to be a drop piece that's going to come up here. Are you ready to go? And it just quiet. Just want to really make sure that they've heard everything. They're prepared. They could be sore. They know what to do. And they forget that. If you ask them like what I see on the table, they forget it until like it comes up the next day. So it's so important. And I want to be an advocate for just what you said, Fraser, not having a script, but what are the 3 or 4 most important things you want to make sure that you hit on? And write it on a note card, keep it close by. They're face down. So if you have to like go back and look at the note card, remember to like say something. Everyone's response is a little bit different. Your response is likely perfect for you, but I can't tell you exactly what it's going to be. 1 in 10 times you're sore and there's ice, right? Oftentimes you feel like you've been in the gym for the first time in a long time.
So little summary, right? On your first visit, You're going to prep them about what they're going to expect with the adjustment. So you're going to explain what kind of visit, your treatment you're doing, right?
And for the record, when you're saying first visit, like first adjustment, because I think you and I
First
both
adjustment,
would do like a day one where you're gathering information but no adjustment, right?
100%.
And then a report of findings. And once you've got clarity on how they're committing to care, now we're into this date. It's day two, but it's the first adjustment, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Because it's important to have that agreement before going forward. So you've explained the adjustment. Normally what I'm going to explain is after their adjustment, I'm going to explain about what they can expect tonight, okay, which is what I gave you, that little spiel. But before they lay down on that table for me, I'm going to make sure that I get agreement that everything's good. They've got any questions,
100%.
nothing like that. And often before I'll do an adjustment, I'll have my staff come in and review, plan and schedule them.
Yep.
And they'll do a CA report, and they'll actually do the scheduling, do the booking, do the payments. And so when I come back in, make sure there's no other questions. And sometimes they'll tell my staff something that they wouldn't tell me. So I'll get that before I come in and do their first adjustment. Okay. And then they go out to the front desk when they're finished, and they've already got at least their first, 6, 7 appointments pre-booked. And if not, the next 12 or so, right?
Really, really, really great points. And I hope you heard what Fraser said there. He relies on his staff. And I'm going to fill in the blanks. Rely on your staff to tell you things that your patient is too afraid to ask you or tell you. And I can't tell you how many times, like, when we had an open adjusting office and I could see all the way to the front and I'd see my staff going like this. And what that means is, look at your computer, dummy. I'm trying to tell you something important. And because we had a messaging system in our office, I had to look down and she goes, Alice is concerned about the blah, blah, blah. And she was like, didn't want to tell you. So when I said, Alice, I'm guessing at this point in time, you're a little bit nervous about and she's like, oh, how did you know? So like that piece of relying on your staff, really great point, Fraser.
And I mean, the other piece of like it's important to have huddles, guys, pre-shift huddles, post-shift huddles, because that's when that communication happens. And if you're not doing that, that's going to be a massive subluxation in your internal office systems. Okay. All right. We ready?
Do you want to go into like the end of the day, the first call then? Just kind of make
let's do first call. So I've taught this for years, and I think it's so critical.
Oh, you have you?
Yeah. I used to teach this to probably a couple thousand chiropractors. So
you should know that before Fraser was a coach, he's been very active in Ontario and his province. So Fraser's
doing regulation.
Fraser's commitment to teaching chiropractic and being a part of regulation goes well beyond his coaching years.
So yeah, and one of the things we always teach is the first call. So after that first visit, it's a really smart thing to do, even just from a regulation standpoint. How do you avoid potential problems with a patient encounter interaction? You nip it in the bud. So that first call is an excellent opportunity. You call them, and it goes like this for me, because I want to find out just, hey, how did they respond? Did they get freaked out? Are they any concerns? Or they got any questions? And I want to do that long before, because I told you guys already earlier, I can't believe how many clients I've seen over the years that went for one adjustment and got so scared they never
came back.
Right? And then 20 years later, they come to my office. Well, that man, I don't want to have anybody do that from my practice. So my procedure is to give them a call and say, hey, Jake, Dr. Fraser calling. I just wanted to check into you after your first adjustment, and I'm making sure that you've got some ice on that spot I should have talked about. And they're like, oh, I can't believe you're calling me.
Yeah.
No, I feel great, doc. No problem. I said, okay, well, just remember a little ice if you need to. That's all I want to do. Just check in. And that's usually it. So the whole call takes about 30 seconds. Okay. You just blown their mind because you called them at
100% of the time.
And that's just like raise the bar for you. Okay. But the other critical piece is if they do have a question and they didn't feel like they wanted to take up the doc's time in the office, or they didn't have that in their mind, they can ask you there. It's a safe space to ask you. And it's a great opportunity to engage in a more lengthy conversation about anything that needs to be discussed. And from a preventative perspective, it helps nip anything that could potentially be a problem in the bud as well. Not that you're looking for that stuff, guys. This is a proactive measure. The other piece is that if
And a
somebody is
stickiness factor, proactive and
huge,
stickiness.
huge. And then the other piece is just making sure that, if they do have any concerns or they are a bit tender, you're just coaching them through it a little bit. But again, 90% of people are feeling either better or about the same, and they're just thrilled with the call.
I would you rely on my staff, like this was a procedure. It was the only thing that they could not miss, because I will miss the first call. I'm tired at the end of the day. I've given my all. I've missed first calls. I'm like, oh, it's totally unacceptable for it to be on my like my desk the next day. Like the only thing you cannot miss this little piece of paper like this, and it was a bright color, like a bright pink or a bright orange neon, like and the ladies knew, like, you had to order the brightest color for me for the first call, and it had their name, the date of the adjustment, and when their next appointment was. And then there was a space for me to leave a comment, as well as my signature, and then it would go into their permanent file. And here's why I would do that, because I would say, Fraser, probably 9 times out of 10 you get voicemail.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
here's how it would. Here was my script. Hey there, Jane, Dr. J calling you from New Leaf Chiropractic. Just wanted to thank you for your trust in your body. It's really important to us. But also, I'm calling today to see how you responded from your first adjustment. If you have any questions, the phone number at the office here is 303-776-6767. Also, if I'm not here and you call, my personal number's on the voicemail. It's there for a reason. So please don't hesitate to reach out and text or call if it's the weekend, if you need anything at all. Click. Now, 2 things that I've done there. Like, nobody ever picks up my personal number in the voicemail and calls. I shouldn't say never. Maybe 1 time a month. But for the amount of times I'd say it's there, and it's there for a reason. Like, I care about you, and I called you, and you can get me at home. Like, you talk about wow factor. And almost every time somebody would come back in and say, hey, how did you do the first adjustment? Did you get my phone call? And they go, oh my God, thank you. That was amazing. I can't believe you called. They forget about it, but they're choosing to acknowledge you. Oh, one other thing that I forgot to mention, because I don't have the piece of paper in front of me, so I forget, is I would say, Jane, according to my records, I'm actually going to see you tomorrow morning. Or Jane, according to my records, I'm not going to see you for 2 weeks. And I remember, you're on vacation the next 2 weeks, so I'll see you when you return. Have a great time. If you need to change between now and the 26th at 9 a.m., so it's a reminder. It's also if they don't have a next appointment, why don't they have a next appointment? And also leave that on the voicemail. Also, I know you don't have a next appointment. I'm going to have Mandy call and check in on you in a week or 2 weeks or whatever it is. But if there's no next appointment, I would highlight that on that first call. And I always use the word respond. I want to call you how you responded, right? I don't want to call and see if you're sore, but I want to see how your body responded. Mm-hmm. And if they answer the phone, hey, Jim, Dr. J here, just calling to see how your body responded from the first adjustment. And you have to be quiet. And they'll say, well, you know what? It's just like you said. No matter what, it's just like you said. No matter what they're experiencing, it's just like you said.
Which is perfect, right? So you're proactive. All right. Round 3.
Is there anything else that I wanted to say there?
I think we're solid.
I love the first call, and I can't hit it on it enough. And there it is. Yeah. So what's the third one, Fraser?
Table talk, right? Because now we're into regular just table talk and what do you say on a visit to visit basis kind of thing. And honestly, guys, this is your bread and butter. Okay. Bread and butter time is to engage and educate your people. So one of the things we talk about, so yeah, if we do internal, referrals, but I think if we talk about the table talk first, then we'll go into referrals.
Yeah, and because the internal referral ask is part of your table talk, right?
100%.
What are the topics that you can choose to discuss? So go ahead.
So one of the things that in the early part of their care, it's really important to just simply explain some of the basic fundamentals that they're going to experience, right? So what did the nervous system do? You're going to keep educating things. And one thing I learned early on is people need to hear things about 7 times before it actually sticks. So don't worry about repeating yourself, okay? Because they need to hear it over and over and over before it starts to make sense. So I'm usually talking to them about their nervous system, how it works, right? What's the speed of the nervous system? 90% of the nervous system is used for measuring keeping you balanced, right? Keeping you upright. So, we just go through a lot of those little pieces. And you can use, again, the stories, the analogies as much as possible, but whenever possible, make it real for them. So if Jay's coming in and Jay's laying on the table and he's really sore today, and I'm going to say, okay, let's get you checked. I'm like, yeah, 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 So I'm going to start explaining a little bit about what's going on, why it's happening, okay, but what we're doing to get rid of that. So I'm going to say, yeah, your body's doing exactly what I expected. So that's the other thing, right, Doc? You always know what's going on and you expect it, because there's a lot of ways that people can respond, and you've probably seen it all. So what you're going to say is you're going to explain this is normal, right? This is just part of the body adapting, and we're trying to change neurology, which is meaning the muscles and the ligaments have to adapt, and they don't always want to, right? So I will talk about muscle memory, which is really neurological memory, and it's all reflex patterns, and we need to change the reflex patterns and habits. So I will just talk about that just over and over and over, because to me that's the most fundamental piece they have to understand, is the neurology is all about their spinal joints, and that's how you impact their brain and change patterns.
For people who are newer into practice, Fraser, because when I'm listening, I'm like, shoot, I wish I'd said some of those things. I should write some of those things down. But for the most common, like, where do I start? Okay, like, where do I, like, I don't know the speed of a neuron, which it's 285 miles an hour or something. It was an old bill of step. Is that what it is? It's something like that.
Yep, pretty much right around there.
But no matter what you say, no one's going to know that you were a couple miles an hour off one way or the other. The point is that you come across with certainty. And for me, like, when I was new into practice, just say, found a subluxation here, found a joint fixation, whatever it is that you say. Found something that's stuck, bone that's stuck out of place. Let's put it back into place and let's release that nerve. And you know what? I'm feeling this right at C1, which is common for not only headaches, which you've experienced, and neck pain, which is Captain Obvious, but it also, like, there's a really cool study that came out with this guy named Dr. Dickholz that says that there's a link between your blood pressure as well as the position of that top bone. And then you can get into, what does C2 do? Like, what does C3? C3, C4, C5 keeps the diaphragm alive. So anybody's got asthma, allergies, issues, or they're working as an athlete, we really want to make sure that curve is in the middle of the neck, specifically 3, 4, 5, because that goes to your diaphragm. It's going to help you with not only breathing, but when you come a little lower, like your posture. So you get the reflexes of breathing. You're also opening up your chest. We're hitting all the buttons today, right? So for me, like, just go right down that, like, just write C1 and what are the visceral side effects for the benefit of the patient as a result of hitting, lovingly adjusting each area.
Yeah, I mean, this goes right back to the old Merrick system,
Yep.
which is, you just, if you don't know Merrick system, look it up, okay? But this is your breaker panel. So I'll often talk to people about your spinal cord is, your whole column, vertebral column, is your breaker panel. How do we affect the nervous system? Is your body's going to short circuit if it overloads, and it's going to cause a subluxation. My job is to find those areas where it's overloaded and the breaker's flipped, and we're going to put it back. We're going to give it an adjustment to reset it, okay? And the more that your body is stressed, the more it's going to keep tripping that breaker. And the more we, slowly bring it out of that stress response, the more we're going to start to hold that adjustment better. So I'll explain that, but Merrick system is really critical, because you got to know where your nerves go and what are the potential outcomes, because you're going to look one of the key things with an adjustment is to tell them something that they either don't know, or tell them before they tell you. So it's really important to get them on the table and to get them checked, and let your fingers do the talking. Find the spot and tell them, how's your digestion's been off? Like, what's going on? Because you can tell based on their subluxation pattern what they should be feeling or what they may be noticing as other side effects. And if you can tell them that, they will stay with you forever, because they can't believe how knowledgeable this chiropractor can tell about my body.
The in my office, I used to have these laminated. It was the vertebral column, right, and then all the nerves coming out of it going to organs, right. And so what I used to do is say, all right, mid back pain, and I take these little blue and red, I think they're called China markers, and I'd take it and I'd, like, follow So brain down the spinal cord, it's got to go right through here where you're experiencing pain. And that goes not only to your kidneys, your bladder, bowel, digestion, as well as your lungs. Like that, like this is a big one. This is an important area. So let's really make sure that we get this one right today. So you have all those visceral organ systems coming back online in addition to feeling better, right? And then I just erase it for the next person. But because it was this laminated card, they could actually see and follow the lines. And all of a sudden, everything makes sense to them. And then the cool thing is, they come in one day and say, can you do anything about erectile dysfunction for my husband? And I just want you to know, he's got back pain. I'm thinking the two might be related. Don't say anything about it, but like if he feels better, and then we get the thing working, then do you think that could be a thing? You know what, Jane? And then here's the internal referral ask, right? Let me give you this gift certificate. This is for your husband. I know that you got that referral letter home a couple of weeks ago, but take this to your husband. I don't know what he's coming in for, but go ahead and put that in his hand, and let's that, because that's your internal referral ask opportunity. When someone says, "Do you think you could help with?" Right, the chance to. But the more you're seeding things like that, then they'll come to you with these things. You're not going to come out and say, "Hey, so how's the junk working? Can I ask about the sex life?" No, but they will begin to offer it to you and to bring up some of these really sensitive topics all the time.
100%. So it's important. If you don't tell them, they don't know, right? So the other piece that I think is really important is to talk about the effects of stress, physiological stress, right? So trauma, thoughts, toxins, or physical, chemical, mental, emotional, and what the impact of that is on the nervous system, because there is a ton of science around the stress response nowadays, right? And we know that it has direct impacts on your neurology and your sympathetic tone and obviously spinal column function. So that's something that I talk about constantly is stress, right? And how much stress they're under. There's this and it's really, really, really important for them to understand and equate that stress translates directly into their tone of the nervous system. Okay. And so one of the things I talk about regularly is the number of adjustments you need is directly proportional to the amount of stress in your life. Traumas, thoughts, toxins, because people forget about the toxins. They forget about the mental, emotional, right? They think about physical. And then, the graduated level is probably thinking more about the emotional, but they forget about the toxicity piece too. So, you really, if you start talking about the impacts, and I would have a table talk on every one of those patterns, right? Talk about the effects of chemical toxicity in all the different ways and forms and how that affects your nervous system. That's really important teaching tool. Physical is pretty straightforward. I think you can all explain that. People kind of get that. But then really talk about the mental emotional stress and how that impacts your nervous system and your tone. And have the guides in like the pamphlets or the brochures or the wall the dry mounts posters in your office. I do. And it spells out the stress response and how it affects all of their nervous system. Really, really important.
I like the thoughts, traumas, toxins, and people say, well, it's right. It's like 7 times. Again, we haven't rehearsed this, but that was common in my practice also. Is like, I thought in my head I had to say something 7 times for somebody to really not hear it, but like own it, right? There's a difference between like knowing something, which is knowledge, and wisdom, which is like all the cells in your body own it too. But what you said was really wise there, Fraser, about thoughts, traumas, and toxins. And I would always say, look, it's really easy in a physical world where if I pick something up and move it from here to there, we know that physically happened, right? Just like you were injured, something happened. It's easy to see that you have a pain as a result. But what is so often discounted is what we put into our body, right? And what like emotionally like happens up here, because it does matter. Right? Get them thinking outside of the box. And that way, when they come in one day and like, oh man, my knee's hurting today. I'm like, your knee? Okay. Well, any new thoughts, traumas, toxins of late? Anything that's happened that's new, different, other? Because you prep them with that. Now you've got a whole table talk, and they'll say, you know what? Now that you say that, my brother died. Something heavy like that they just, and it's like, But if you ask them, like, okay, like a new symptom shows up, so instead of like going into the exam room and learning all about it and spending 15 minutes and hearing the whole story, it's just, well, hold on there, Tina. Let's just process this. Any new thoughts, traumas, toxins? What's new? Because a new symptom is showing up, and commonly, it's been my experience. Oftentimes, use those three phrases often. There's a new thought, trauma, toxin, and not always, but anything that comes to light.
And that's brilliant, because honestly, if you teach about the traumas, thoughts, toxins, and you do this regularly, this is part of your table talk on an ongoing basis, people will come in and start telling you. They'll offer it up before you even ask. And I think that's when like, my practice is not hard. It's a lot of people that have been seeing me well over 10 years, even 20 years, a lot of clients. So they already know this is how they think. So when they come in to see you, if their brother died and they just need the adjustment, they know there's a ton of stuff going on physically with their body, but they just need that adjustment because they know the impact is going to be significant from them, just from a well-being perspective. Okay.
So this is good, and all of these are also opportunities to ask for an internal referral. Every single one of these. Man, I'm feeling great. Awesome. I'm so happy to hear that. Who do you know who's suffering and taking Advil and would consider using chiropractic, using natural methods to get their health back? Who do you know?
Yeah, so it's brilliant, Jay, and I use that on all the time. And when do people refer? They want to refer. They want to refer when they're inspired and they're excited, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you get a win, so first of all, you're not going to find out half the wins unless you plant the seed that they can actually happen in the first place, right? Because the person comes in with a back problem, they don't realize that their psoriasis might be connected to the adjustments when it gets better, right, in their skin. Or they don't realize that this getting up to go to the bathroom all the time at night, suddenly they don't have to get up in the bathroom anymore. They don't realize that it was chiropractic that did it unless you teach them that it can do it. Okay.
Yeah.
So you've got to make sure you do that. But when you get those wins, that's when you got to capitalize. If you want the referral, you have to celebrate the win. And then you say, hey, Sally, that's awesome. I love that. Who do you know that needs that, chiropractic care like you've got? And they're like, or I say, who's in your family right now that you wish was here? And they're like, I really wish so-and-so was here. I said, what do you need from me to help you get them here? I'm happy to take a call after hours. I can give them a call if they're ready for it. Do you want a pamphlet? I can give you some notice. We do a workshop regularly. We can invite them to, those are the things. You have to give them opportunities to help them teach and educate other people.
And what you said was important with the pamphlet. I love to put an action step in their hand, a piece of paper in their hand, because they'll forget about it because they're feeling great, right? Like, life's good. I'm thinking about playing with my kid soccer again in the backyard. Like, I'm not trying to think about sending somebody to take up more of my doctor's time. I want him all to myself. But put that piece of paper in their hand that says, here's your gift certificate, here's $20 off, or whatever it is. But have some low barrier of entry so that you can earn someone's trust.
And a lot of people are really afraid to ask for a referral because they feel like it's self-serving. And so you've got to get that out of your head. And what is that, kiddos?
Someone's at the front door, and
no way, Halloween's still going.
And I still have the Halloween thing on, so
that's hilarious.
We're recording this in November, and I saw her walking up through the door here, and I was wondering if she's going to ring the doorbell.
That's funny.
Pattern interrupt.
Pattern interrupt. So back to what the heck were we talking about? I think it was just the fear of actually asking for a referral. Okay, so here's the key, guys. It's not about you. It's not about you. It's about who needs your help, who needs chiropractic help. Because I tell that to people all the time. Who do you know that needs to see a chiropractor?
But
and if they're, I know chiropractors all over this country. Who needs our help? And they're like, I got a friend of mine who's in Ottawa. I know lots of chiropractors there. Let me know. But it's not about you. It's about helping more people.
So take the pressure off yourself, right?
Totally.
Like make it about them and look for the wins, look for the opportunities and the openings to ask for a referral. And here's another thing that you can commonly do. Um, a form of internal referral is the Google Ask. And for me, a Google review is just as good, sometimes better than like a direct referral because like you get so many of those and that's the gift that keeps on giving. So if someone's,
Yeah.
hey, look, I'm feeling really great, doc. My headaches are like 90% better. We've only had 4 adjustments. Oh, that's really awesome. Look, I don't know if you heard, there's this new businesses out there. It's called, it's called Google, I think. Have you heard of it? Right? Stories like make it funny. Of course I've heard of Google. So, Google is actually really important to our business. And again, like a piece of paper in their hand. And I would generally have 2 of them, like a color one walking them through how to leave a Google review, and then a piece of paper, just a Word document with 5 simple steps. And I would just say, look, it'd mean a lot to me if you'd share your story online, share it in the Google sphere so that people can find us and let them know like about your experience. And that being said, it's also an opportunity for me to ask you, like, do you feel like you're getting 5-star service here? Like, because if you're not, and if you generally wouldn't write a 5-star review, just let me know what we got to do to get there. Just a moment, just a total moment of honesty. And the response is always, oh yeah, you guys are 5 stars all the way. Like, I can't believe I haven't done this already. But you have to put that piece of paper in the hand. The follow through rate of a piece of paper, whether it's someone coming in for an appointment and a referral gift card, Christmas, like what special or opportunity or raffle are you running in your office that you can capitalize on and remind them, right? Hey, look, you consider leaving a Google review, 5 tickets to win the new TV. Like that's one way people have encouraged people to leave a review, right?
Yep.
Check with your state.
We've done that.
Check
We've
with your
done that in our
states.
office.
But that's all table talk. That's all camaraderie, all rapport. And also, as a side note, make sure you've got a way to keep track of, like, have you asked people for referral? Because
you don't want to keep
ask them
asking.
100 times. If they've left a Google review, please don't keep asking them. Like, find out who's left a Google review, respond to the reviews. Again, this is all marketing. This hopefully should not feel uncomfortable. I mean, a little bit, but for the most part.
Well, and frankly, this is how you impact your community, guys. If you want to be the answer in your community to a lot of suffering, then you have to get out of the way of yourself and start thinking about those people that need your help and that don't have access or don't understand or had that bad experience a long time ago. So you got to give them opportunities to get into your office. Okay. And you have to be not afraid to ask. That being said, one of the other key times to ask for a referral, I said before, people are going to refer when they're inspired. So the key pieces are when you've seen a big win, if you ring the miracle bell in your office, and that's a key point for a referral, but also exams. When you've done an exam, okay? So when you're doing your progress exam and you're relaying, on your report side, how amazing they've done, or they've even, whenever somebody has an unsolicited testimonial about how great they're doing, that's when you hit them because they're inspired, right? So make sure
when you lovingly ask them, please don't hit your patients.
No, you lovingly ask them, and you know what? People want to help. People want to find out how they can get family members, friends to come, and sometimes they need your assistance. So again, offering them a phone call makes a big difference. I've done for years, I've had a workshop or healthcare class, and it's free for anybody who wants to come out, and there's no catches. We give them a big time discounted exam if they come to that workshop before attending my office for care. And it's a safe space. People get to know me. They know that I don't have hairy, vampire teeth and all this stuff, and it makes a big difference. It breaks down a lot of barriers. So if you're not doing a workshop or a healthcare class, think about it. Very powerful.
I think we're good. Well, I know we're going to run out of time. I was thinking about role playing some difficult conversations, but let's just hit on one thing quick: is that by you being honest, being authentic, being yourself, and asking and coaching them appropriately, but doing it in a loving way is going to allow for them to ask you difficult things.
Yeah.
What I was hoping was we'd have a chance, and we'll stop here in a little bit, but there are times where people call and they're upset and they're frustrated, and no matter how much of the stuff you do, you're going to get those phone calls and support. Let's just do a total separate one on that. But because you've done this and you've made that first call, you've done all those things and you've become likable and you've got the stickiness factor, when those conversations come up, they're willing to come, like, have a conversation with you, not yell at you. And that's the important piece that I at least want to hit on, is the importance of this, again, being proactive.
Malcolm Gladwell's very first book, and I forget what
Outliers.
title. Oh, is that his first one? Second one. Anyway, for his first book, and I used to quote this at a lot of the talks that I did. You know, the single biggest difference in a malpractice lawsuit
Yep.
across
Yep.
all disciplines was actually being approachable and
Yep.
having more communication. If that's 99% of people want to have a little bit more enhanced communication, and if they felt you're more approachable, you're going to avoid a lot of potential painful outcomes. So we call it a carefrontation in our office. I mean, you're going to get some of those, but also carefrontation in my office is like people are off schedule, right?
What's
They're
it
missing
called? Carefrontation?
we call it a carefrontation. So because no one likes confrontation, so it's a carefrontation. So,
Was it The Tipping Point? Was that the book?
yeah, I think it was a tipping point.
I remember reading that also, and every time I'd actually would say this to people, like, people enter medical malpractice suits not because they feel like they were injured, but because they didn't like the doctor.
Yep.
And actually, case in point is here. I'll show you. Let's check this out. You see that bad boy? So I broke my ankle and had a staph infection. And all these people actually were like, you should sue them. This is definitely like a lawsuitable thing. But you know what? That doctor called while he was on vacation at the beach when he first heard, like, I was going through some stuff. And I actually had to go to the ER. And I was like, nope, like, that guy's at the beach with his family. And, like, if I open up a lawsuit, what that does to that guy who obviously cares, maybe something happened, but you know what? Like, I'm going to walk again. And so, like, I didn't even entertain it, but I heard that a lot. Like, hey, this is an OR problem. No, that guy's was likable, right?
Yeah.
I heard that. No. I read that in the book. And I was like, oh, that's what happened to me. It's funny.
Yeah, it's so important, and that is the tipping point. But so carefrontations, we look at. I mean, you're going to get people coming in and having concerns with some of their progress sometimes, but for us, it's really about them staying committed to their agreements, right? So if they're missing an appointment, if you don't call somebody on a missed appointment, the immediately after, like the next visit, and you've got a system in your office to make sure you flag the canceled appointments, people who are off their schedule, people who are actually like just no shows. If you don't actually hold them accountable to that, they're going to just keep walking all over you. Okay. But second of all, they're not going to get the results that they want. So one of the things that I always talk about is, hey, Mrs. Jones, I'm concerned, I saw that you missed your last appointment. Is everything okay? Is there anything I should know about? One visit, so what they know is right away that right? That you're paying attention to this stuff and you care. If it's multiple visits, then it's a carefrontation. And it's going to say, I always just say, hey, Mrs. Jones, there's two things I care about most. Your results and my reputation. And I don't want to risk either one of them. And if you don't stick to your routine, the program that we had kind of outlined with the best of our experience and knowledge, if you don't stick to that, then there's a high likelihood that you're not going to get the results that you want. And I don't want you thinking that chiropractic didn't work. I'd rather not have you as a patient than fail to get those results. So what I would like to do is potentially review your schedule, make sure it works for you right now, and or maybe we need to discontinue care at this point until your life settles down or whatever. It's a better time for you. And I promise you, that will move.
Oh, no, Doc. No, it's good.
Action.
I'm good.
Exactly. And sometimes people just have, geez, my mom is really sick right now, and you're like, okay, I get it. Let's postpone, or let's adjust the schedule. Let's create a new agreement so that nobody's, you're not slipping away in the middle of the night, not getting the results, and I don't know what happened to you either, right? So you want to make sure that you open up the dialogue of conference, like you want to communicate at all times and allow them the opportunity to communicate about what's going on in their life.
Really good piece there, Fraser. And I heard you say the words, like, I can't remember exactly you said like it's been my experience or predictable, my observation. Again, having these words these phrases at your disposal, it's look like my reputation. So what you're saying is like in the years of like people come before you, like I have this reputation because of this. It's predictable, right? Let's take the variables away. Missing appointments is another variable that it's hard for me to overcome. So it's been my observation, in my experience, choose the phrase that suits you best, and then fill in the sentence. So write a couple of those down and hold those. Like Tom is enrolled me in that years ago. Have 3 or 4 things that you can consistently say that makes you approachable, but also like conveys like you know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. And love them enough to hold them accountable.
It's wise words.
Love them enough to hold them accountable. That's a big piece, right? Because it's easy sometimes to let them off the hook, right?
Just like back in the old podcast days, Fraser, an hour goes by and we're done.
Yowza. Yeah. All right. Well, listen. Thanks for hanging in there for everybody who watched us to the end, and we're hoping that this is going to have an impact on your practice in your life in some manner. Leave us comments, questions,
please. Give us some of your best tips and tricks below here. Let us know what's worked for you over time. And you know what? Like bookmark this video and share it with one of your colleagues or friends, because Fraser's got a waiting list practice. If that's what you want, here's a script. And it's not marketing. It's not Facebook ads. I think we can all agree that like that. We know that like that company and companies like it prey on people, right? I heard one marketer say once that the most common demographic that these Facebook marketers go after are women suffering with depression, right? Oh, and you can help those people by clearing that nervous system interference when you go about it the right way, the authentic way, right? So anyway, Fraser. Till next time.
Sign off. All right.
Cheers.
Good one.